Hello YouTube, Dave here again. So it's taken a little bit longer than I initially intended for it to, but I do want to resume my series of videos for Pathfinder 2nd Edition that are designed to act as sort of a buyer's guide. Now in these videos I'm not really going to tell you which things you should or shouldn't have. I always want you, the viewers, to sort of make your own decisions. But I do want to at least put everything together in one video so you can see the types of accessories that are out there and make your own decision. The first video in this series was all about the current books that were out at the time, and this is all going to be about accessories. Now, if there's one thing I will say with absolute certainty is that Paizo does an amazing job with their accessories. For RPG-related stuff, it's honestly some of their stuff is some of the best accessories that I've ever seen in terms of quality, in terms of understanding what it is that people want or what it is that people value when they purchase these things. So my hat really goes off to them. So you're not really going to go wrong with any of the items that I'm going to show today, but there are some that are going to be more important to you or more interesting to you than others. So again, this just sort of puts everything together. I'm not going to be doing unboxings or going into a lot of detail on like the contents of the items that I'm going to show here. I've done review videos for pretty much everything that I'm showing or similar products. So you can always search for those on my channel. Most of them will be in the Pathfinder 2nd Edition playlist. That is going to be at the end of the video that you can click on. You can just search for the individual things. So like this is just sort of going to put everything together, share my thoughts on it, and we'll go from there. The first thing that I want to show is in my opinion, a rather important accessory and something that I do highly recommend, especially if you're running like in person and you don't want player characters. So the first item that I'm going to show here is the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Game Master screen, or GM screen. Now, GM screens in general are some of my favorite things to collect. I've got quite a few different screens for a few, variety of different RPGs, and they're always useful to have. They have, so just taking a look here, there's, two sides. There's one side that faces out towards the players, and then there's this side that faces towards the Game Master. And it's just filled with lots of really useful information, including like conditions and actions and some other important bits of information to have. So it's always great to have that. And they also help hide your notes, hide your die rolls if you don't want the player seeing what you're doing. The retail price for this US was $19.99. So yeah, this is definitely a worthwhile purchase. Now, at the time I'm recording this, I do believe there's going to be an updated version of the Game Master screen coming out, one that sort of connects with or deals with items described in the Game Mastery Guide for 2nd Edition Pathfinder. That's currently not available at the time that I'm recording this, so that may be an upgrade, it may just be something different. But a Game Master screen is always a great thing to have, at least in my opinion, because like I said, I really love these. So check it out, and again, if you want to see it in more detail, then I did do a video for it on my channel, so just click the playlist at the end here, and you can search for it there. So that's the first thing. The second item I'm going to show here is the Pathfinder 2nd Edition Character Sheet Pack. Now, this one I would probably say is one of the more optional of the things that I'm going to show here. But there are some good things about this. This has character sheets for, like, there's generic ones, or it also has the front page and I think the first couple of pages for each of the core classes in the core rulebook. There's also, again, at the time I'm recording this, there's going to be a pack, I think, coming out for the Advanced Player's Guide. They're just simply not out at this point in time, but that, again, may be a welcome addition. The great thing about the individual character sheets for each class is that it actually fills in a lot of the information that is always standard for each class. For example, it will automatically have your proficiency or training levels in weapons, armor, certain like skills that are granted automatically by your class. It'll also put in class features that are going to be the same and not ones that are based off of choice. So it does a lot of that, early stuff for you. So it's really great from that perspective. I think they're really useful for beginning players. The price for this US retail price is $14.99. You can also purchase these as a PDF from Paizo.com/Pathfinder. So if you just want to have them so you can print them out yourself, then you can purchase them from the website and you'll have access to them. But yeah, again, these are pretty cool, especially like I said, for having those class features and training levels, proficiencies, and everything already filled in for you for the specific classes. So I think that's pretty neat. So the next I'm going to show here, I don't have the Pathfinder version of it, but this was one of the first accessories to come out when Pathfinder 2nd Edition launched. So this is the Starfinder version, but the same idea holds true here. This is the combat pad. Now this is actually a really cool concept, really cool item, and one that I think is just really, really neat. I actually really like this. So it's sort of a magnetic surface that you can use, and you've got all these different magnets that you can attach to do things like initiative order, keep track of whose turn it is in combat, what actions they've done, if they, did their action, or if they, ready to do something or delayed. So you can have all of that stuff in there. There's a round tracker, and there's just spots for notes to have. I think there's a couple of extra options on the tracker, the combat pad for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. Now the Starfinder version was $24.99. I don't know if the Pathfinder one is the exact same price. The one thing I will say about this, and one of the key reasons why I never picked up the Pathfinder one, is that as a left-handed person, it's really difficult to use this without erasing everything. So for example, when I write, my hand will just naturally sort of go across, the things that I'm that are on the tracker. So I've had, when I was using this for Starfinder, I would find that character names would be wiped out, or by the time I, started tracking hit points, stuff would get wiped out. So for me as a left-handed person, it's a bit difficult to use, but that's, something that only affects a portion of the population. And, so for right-handed individuals, this is a really cool item and definitely worth checking out. Now, I know for me, for example, I'm always really bad when I have larger groups of being able to track whose turn it is. So this was an absolute godsend to have. And the round tracker is also great for, things that have durations, things along those lines. So again, really, really cool stuff there, and worth checking out if you want some sort of fancy initiative tracker. Like I said, it's just a little bit difficult for me as a left-handed person. So that is sort of the base accessories that came out. There's a ton of different card-based accessories as well that have come out for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. And again, these are all really, really top-notch stuff, I should say. The first one that I want to show here is one that I've gotten a lot of use out of whenever I run my Pathfinder games, and that is the condition tracker. So conditions are a big part of pretty much any D20 era role-playing game. Ones that use the open gaming license, for example. Conditions were just always a big part of the game. With Pathfinder, you have conditions that have different stages of severity. Now, in previous RPGs, like 3rd edition, the 3rd edition system, the 3.0 open gaming license, the D&D version of that, would have multiple different names for conditions that did the same thing, but were just like one level above or below kind of thing. So with this one, what's great about this is it gives you the condition descriptions, so you know what it affects, all those things, but it also gives you two different tracker cards you can use. One is a round counter that you can use to count down for the number of rounds that you're going to be affected by it. Then there's also one that just gives you a number that you can put in that dictates the modifier. So for example, if you're slowed, you could be slowed 1 action, or you could be slowed 2 actions. So you can write in those numbers. You could be sickened 1, 2, or 3, or stuff like that. So they, the higher the number, the more of a penalty you take on your rolls. So it's really, really useful for that. And I find, giving the cards to the players when they get the condition makes my life as a game master a lot easier, because I don't have to try keeping track of everything that they have. So again, this is a really great one to have. The US retail price for this was, if I can get it to focus here, was $22.99, and again, definitely a worthwhile purchase. So there you can see the condition values, which I think you double side to the tracker, and then you have the numbers that you can write in. So again, awesome stuff there. In addition to that, there are two decks that are totally optional, but they add so much to the game, and they become huge favorites amongst my Pathfinder 2nd Edition group. And that is the Critical Hit deck and the Critical Fumble deck. So these are for if you roll a natural 1 or a natural 20. In Pathfinder 2nd Edition, you can score critical hits or critical failures by either exceeding your target number by 10 or more, or failing failing the target roll by 10 or more. So it's, those are, ways that you can get criticals, but these are just for the natural 1 and natural 20 die rolls. And they, like I said, they add a ton. They have a lot of hilarious names. And I've noticed that with these cards out on the table, it does a better job of keeping players' focus on everyone's action instead of people sort of tuning out until it's their turn. Whenever someone rolls an attack roll, for example, people sort of huddle around the table and hope for that natural 20 or natural 1. The Critical Fumble deck in particular is my favorite because, like I said, it just adds a whole new level of amusement and humor to it. But both decks are really, really great. Again, totally optional. But I can't personally imagine running a Pathfinder 2nd Edition game without these. I believe the retail price on these are both the same at $12.99 US, so not that expensive an investment. There we go. So it's not that bad of an investment to sink into the game, and especially for the humor stories that can come from having these out at the table. All right, speaking of, other types of cards along these lines, or at least in the same style packaging, we do have the Pathfinder Chase cards. Now, this is something that you really only may want to consider if you have the Game Mastery Guide for Pathfinder 2nd Edition, because the thing is that the Chase rules are in that book. Now, the cards do have rules information on them, so that even if you don't have the Game Mastery Guide, you do have the basic information on how to run chases from the rules cards that are here. But in general, it's always better to have the book that they came out of than just relying on these. But what's great about these is it gives you a ton of obstacles, different environments, and it can really help sort of flesh out the chase and make it, again, very visually easy to keep track of. And that's always a useful thing when it comes to something along these lines. The retail price for these are $14.99 US. Again, see if I can get it to, there we go. All right, up next we have the Adventure Gear deck. Now there is also a deck of cards for weapons and armor. I just don't have those ones currently. The stores in my area don't seem to, they either don't seem to stock it, or if they get it in, it doesn't tend to stick around long enough for me to get to the store to see it. But these are just, the cards that you have with the descriptions of the items. So the Adventure Gear deck is sort of your miscellaneous equipment from the core rulebook. But this has, quite a few different cards in here. There's 110 cards total. Again, it gives you all kinds of information. You can see sort of an example there with the Elite Disguise Kit. The US retail price on this is $22.99. But what's great about these is that every single card is illustrated. So on one side of the card, you'll have the artwork depicting what the actual item is. The other side will have the description. Now, these can also be really great for stocking like general stores. So you could effectively sort of shuffle these up and just draw X number of cards to show, what items they may have or what they may not have. So, there's a lot of stuff that you can definitely do with this, but even just letting the players have the cards for things like what does their disguise kit do, what's included, how does it affect, the rules, is something that's really useful to have. And again, there's also the same kind of deck style for armor and weapons from the core rulebook as well, which again, I wish I had. I just don't at this point in time, but the fact that these are all individually illustrated, to me, puts these sort of head and shoulders above competition from other RPGs that use either placeholder art or just generic art for things that they don't have pre-existing art for. I can't confirm this 100%, but I did mention this in the original video, and there are people in the comments that indicated that the artwork on these cards is, for the most part, unique and new to Pathfinder 2nd Edition. There were equivalents of this in Pathfinder 1st Edition as well, and, you know, I wouldn't have blamed Paizo had they just recycled that art. But from what I was told in the comments, again, take that with a grain of salt because I don't have the 1st Edition versions physically myself to compare, but they did say that it is all unique art, or it's all new, brand new art, and it's not reliant on just artwork that's in the core rulebook. Everything has its own illustration, which is awesome. All right, staying with the theme of cards, we have the Pathfinder spell card decks. So there are 5 of these in total. And these are, again, definitely a fantastic purchase, especially if you are playing a spellcaster. As a game master, it may be a bit much to collect all of them, but if you're just playing as a player and you have a particular class that you enjoy playing the most, like wizard, sorcerer, bard, druid, cleric, what have you, these are super handy to have. They contain every spell that is printed in the core rulebook, and they fill out the cards as best they can to ensure that you are referencing the core rulebook as little as possible. In fact, for the primal and focus cards, I can tell you for sure that all of those cards, I didn't see any of them that actually had you reference the core rulebook. The Divine deck, I actually didn't get around to doing a video for this one. I had one recorded, but it just didn't turn out the way that I liked it. There are a couple of cards in there that do direct you to the core rulebook, but those are ones that have huge descriptions in the core rulebook. But the great thing about these is that they will use the double-sided card to print the text that they can for the spell description, rather than just having, the artwork on the back and a brief spell description on the front. And if they can't fit the information on the front, then they just, tell you to go to the book. They will use the back of the card for spell text if they have to. And for the most part, it prevents you from having to go to the rulebook at all. There will be a couple of exceptions, but for the most part, again, does a really, really awesome job. The US retail price for these smaller decks, so the focus spell cards, which are all the focus spells from the core rulebook, the divine cards and the primal cards, are all $24.99 US, and they typically contain around 150 cards each. The occult spell cards and the arcane spell cards, they retail for $29.99, and I believe they typically have around 200 spells in the occult spell card deck and 200 spells in the arcane deck. So again, you get everything there. The boxes also have extra space in there that can accommodate either sleeved cards if you like to sleeve them. Just keep in mind some of them are double-sided, or you can use them to organize spell decks from future releases. Like I think there's going to be one for the Advanced Player's Guide that will probably just have all of the spells in that book, all in the one box. So if you wanted to, you could separate them out by the spell traditions and put them in these boxes to keep them all together that way. So again, a really, really cool feature that way. And the last card-based product that I want to look at here today is a big one. This is the Pathfinder Bestiary battle cards. So these are cards for every creature in the Bestiary 1. I'm going to assume that there's going to be something similar to this for the Bestiary 2, which is already out. I don't know that for certain yet, but my God, this is an awesome product. The cards themselves are massive. So inside of this box, and this box again is quite large. If you compare it to, say, the deck box for the Fumble deck, the Critical Hit deck, and the Chase cards, they all, the width of those 3 decks, take up the size of this box here. So inside of here, there are just 2. We'll just open this one up really quickly. As you can see, there are 2 stacks, and these things are huge. So they do an awesome job with that. If the stats are too involved or they're too long to fit on a single card, then they will use multiple cards. The cards are all numbered, and if one is requires multiple cards, it will say continued on and then continued from on the individual cards. Again, all unique artwork with the exception of a couple of cards that use the same thing, like the same art for two different creatures, but that is very, very, very rare. In fact, one of the things that I really love about this is that I think each dragon, like the metallic and chromatic dragons, have 3 different age categories in the Bestiary book. In this box set, each of those different types have their own unique art. So that's really awesome. They could have just used the same art for like the young blue dragon, the adult blue dragon, and the ancient blue dragon, but they didn't do that. They actually had different art for each one. So that's really, really awesome. This is, to date, I believe, the most expensive accessory for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. This comes in at $59.99 US. But again, you're getting 450 massive cards in here with the complete stat blocks for everything in the Bestiary. In theory, you could simply purchase the card set rather than having the book. If that's the kind of thing that you're okay with, then you can do that. Now, it will make things a little bit difficult if you're running published stuff because it will just reference the page number for the creature in the Bestiary. But if you keep everything alphabetical, then again, theoretically, you could just use these cards and they have everything that you could possibly want. I think there's only a couple of exceptions where there's something minor missing from it, or there may be a description of a racial ability that the creatures get that may appear on one of the cards for the creature type and not like the different offshoots of it. But again, just really, really awesome stuff. And if you're someone that, like me, was running these games at local game stores and you were going out, for me, I would rather just take the Bestiary cards that I know I would need for the adventure that I was running, rather than taking a bunch of books with me. So it's going to be really useful from that. And again, just a really fantastic item that they've done here. So it is pricey, but I will say it is worth the cost for it 100%. All right, so we are reaching the end here. There's just a couple of different accessories left that I want to talk about. To go along with the Bestiary battle cards, there are also Pathfinder Pawns. Now, I don't have the Bestiary box from like the Bestiary 1 at this point in time. It is something that I'm hoping to pick up at some point. I just don't currently have it. But what's great about Pathfinder Pawns is they are just cardboard stand-up minis. If you buy the Bestiary box, from the Bestiary 1, it should come with a collection of bases. But what these are is they're just really they're cardboard, they're stand-ups, and they are great substitutions for plastic or metal miniatures. If you're someone who's just getting into RPGs and you don't have a ridiculously high collection of miniatures already, this is a cheap, cost-effective way to build up a really decent assortment. Now this one here is tied to the very first adventure path that they put out for 2nd edition, so this is the Age of Ashes one. The Bestiary box has all of the creatures. I think that are size huge and smaller. Like, I don't know if they have gargantuan or larger creature sizes in that or not, so don't quote me on that because, like I said, I don't have it. But I know with like the Age of Ashes one, it has anything that's huge or smaller in it. So again, it's just a great cheap substitution for trying to go out and get a whole bunch of plastic miniatures, which can cost hundreds of dollars by the time you get an amount that's sort of equivalent to what you would have in something like the Bestiary box. So something to keep in mind. I don't have the retail prices for those, unfortunately. This one here, which again is for the specific adventure path, it has all the unique creatures from the adventure path, NPCs, stuff like that, is $24.99, and this gives you around roughly 100 creature pawns. So again, trying to get 100 miniatures can be very expensive compared to something like this, so definitely worth checking out. And then the last accessories I want to talk about are, again, some of my favorites, and I know I've said that a few times when it comes to these types of videos, but these are Pathfinder flip mats. So there's a couple of different types that get released here. The ones with like the blue coloration that you see, these are sort of like new maps. They're ones that are just coming out. So you have like this one here is tied to a solo adventure or a standalone adventure called The Fall of Plaguestone, which came out on release date for Pathfinder 2e. There's a new standalone adventure that also has a map called this, like the adventure's called The Slithering, but there's all kinds of other things that they do with that. Sometimes they'll even do multi-packs. So this is one here that has 2 of these double-sided maps in there. These are great because they allow you to use markers on them to either, fill in things or make notes or, draw in like walls or stuff like that. You can do whatever you want with them. They're really, really awesome. And the red ones here are re-releases of what they call Pathfinder Classics. So these are ones that they released back during the days of first edition that were really popular, sold really well, and so they're re-releasing them again so that anyone who missed out on them in the first place, which would be me, will have an opportunity to go back and get some of these. I have a few different ones of these already, but what's also great about these maps that when they come out is I love just looking at them and coming up with inspiration for my own homebrew adventures. So if I were to design something, I could use like the dungeon complex here, or I could look at the ambush sites that they have available for the maps here, and it just really gives you a good idea. And these are pretty decent sized maps. So the size are 24 inch by 30 inch, so 2 feet by 2.5 feet. For those, there are some that are also a little bit larger. I don't have any of them currently here, but there are some that I have, I think, like an extra few inches, so it might be like 24 by 36 or something like that. But anyway, these are really, really cool, especially if you use miniatures or you have the Pathfinder Pawns. But again, you can just look at some of these maps and see the locations that are depicted on there, and it can sort of get creative juices going and help you flesh out an adventure. I have a bunch of them for the Starfinder role-playing game as well, and I can say from experience, I did design a complete scenario around just one of the maps that I picked up, and it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed that process. I just looked at the map, and it's like, I have an idea of something I could do, a story I could tell with this location, and it was awesome. So these maps typically go for $14.99, I think, for the regular size ones here. Just get it to focus. There we go. So $14.99. I believe this one here is also, though this one's actually $13.99, so it's a little bit cheaper. And then the multi-pack, this one here in particular, is $24.99. So the prices may vary a little bit, but these are also really great accessories to have as well, and again, amongst my favorite. So that was my look at the Pathfinder accessories. Again, even though I call this a buyer's guide, it's more or less just meant to draw your attention to the variety of products that are out there, share my thoughts on them a little bit, and if there's something that sounds like it might be of interest to you, or something that you weren't aware of, then, I hope it can help, just sort of raise that awareness. I love Pathfinder 2nd Edition, and again, I absolutely love the accessories that Paizo creates. It's just top-notch stuff, like things that I've had frustrations with other companies for other games. Paizo, seems to understand that those are going to be problems and resolves them and does what you would hope a company would do. So just, again, fantastic stuff, and I look forward to many more accessories to come. Again, if you wanted more detailed looks at the items that I've shown here, there are reviews or unboxing videos for pretty much all of these on my channel. I will have the Pathfinder playlist that you can click on at the end of this video. I will probably also put the Starfinder one on there just because I've opened up a fair number of the flip mats for Starfinder, which are the same basic idea, even though they're different genre, but the same basic idea, as well as a video taking a look at the combat tracker there. So anyway, if you are someone who's running or playing 2nd Edition Pathfinder, let me know what, if any, of these accessories you've picked up for your game. For example, did you get the character sheets, and do you use them or do you photocopy them? for people that play specific classes. You know, are you using the spell cards, the bestiary battle cards, pawns, the GM screen, like different card sets like critical hit, critical fumble, or do you use like pawns and the flip mats? Just let me know, because I always love to hear what other people are doing with their games and what accessories that they go after. So thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.